So if we round to the nearest 100, if it's 352, you're rounding up. If it's 349, you're rounding down.
Mm-hmm.
So even though they're super close, if you're rounding to the nearest 100, that's not helpful because of how far you're rounding.
Yeah.
Right?
So is there a point that you need to round to the nearest?
Here they're trying
50?
to prove that you need to round to the nearest 50.
Jesus.
Which is, like, to me, a little conceptually
So then what's
difficult.
What's the thinking strategy then if it's like... It's from Target.
I want it for best.
I think everything I'm wearing right now is from Target. I swear to God. Okay. They have them in gray. So.
Okay.
And white.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks for including.
So the thinking strategy with the 50s thing, would that be like
it's helpful here, and I think they will be able to see it. It's them seeing 349 rounds to 350 if we round to the nearest 10, 352 rounds to 350, 352 rounds to 350.
Yeah.
So again, it could be I could say it as the nearest 10 instead of the nearest 50, and that's what I might lean towards. All right.
Yeah.
So I hear important.
How will the 50 help them?
Yeah.
It's just the 10.
Yeah. A very small difference in the numbers can make a difference in the way we round, and also a big difference in the results. So how much you get a better estimate when you see the add-ins are close to halfway between your rounding units. We could round to the nearest 10 or nearest 50. I'm going to stick with nearest 10 and just say that.
Yeah.
So that my language is
Because the 10 will always provide them with the more precise estimate.
Exactly, and that's what I care about.
So that goes back to the same thinking strategy, which will be most helpful, 10 or 100.
Right, and then when you move on to problem 3, analyze how rounding to the nearest 100 is nearly the same as rounding to the nearest 10 when both add-ins are close to 100.
Sure.
Because the hundreds
It's right
here
there.
is the same 10 as the 10.
Yeah.
Right.
When you say have this image available as an exemplar, what do you mean?
I mean that's what your board should look like. That's the
okay.
teacher board looks like that. And you could even say this is what you can be saying. In this case, rounding to the nearest 100 was equally precise. So they should be able to say that language.
Mm-hmm.
So I think whatever evidence of progress that's going to be going on is that kids are going to be able to say, by the time we get here, if we round to the nearest 10 or the nearest 100, it's going to be the same thing, and actually it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, so they're able to
differentiate, which is more effective and more precise.
But then there's also this bit about, looking at the add-ins and being able to see, this is already close to 100.
Mm-hmm.
So differentiate between...
So it's that number sense piece as well.
Which is more precise, or which will be more precise. And then analyze the add-ins. And what did you say?
Differentiate between that will be more precise, and then analyze the add-ins and use number sense. I feel like it's to conceptually see. Use number sense to estimate effectively. I feel like.
Yeah, but honestly, I don't even know if that's necessary because it's just differentiate between which will be more precise, right? And the 10 will always be the best one. So I don't know why this is so weird.
Yeah, the way they have it set up. I know. It's it's conceptual to the point of it almost being overwhelming.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
That's where I struggle with it, is being where am I I feel where am I making sure that I'm not lowering the expectation for my kids, but being this is hard for adults.
Yeah.
Not all adults conceptually understand numbers this way. I'm being what is pulling out what is the key most important point here. And I think that if I teach them what we just discussed, they'll be okay.
Yeah.
I think that number sense comes later when they become more fluent with numbers. They're not going to get it in this lesson. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and there will be the kids who are like, oh, well, that was precise because those numbers were already close to
So, exactly.
anyway.
Right, because they're seeing that.
Yeah.
Right. I think that if I push them to the limit that we were talking about, that they'll be able to effectively complete the problem set.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like, can they state that, like, some weird-ass thing about the 50s and the 100s?
Yeah.
No, it's like, can they round and estimate in additional numbers?
Exactly.
So, okay. That helps kind of cut some of the crap.
Yeah.
Error anticipation.
Yeah. So error anticipation is going to start primarily with them rounding correctly.
What specifically?
Excuse me. Rounding when it asks for the nearest 10, rounding to 100 or it's more usually the other way when I ask them to round to 100 that they round to 10.
So rounding to the wrong thing.
Yeah.
How would you address
rounding
that?
To the incorrect place value? Honestly, I would probably whip out my place value chart and be like, let's write this number. And then I would literally, but they're like pretty good at seeing with that place value. But then that would help in me when I ask the question, how many hundreds are in this number? Because that's how I have them frame it, and then they draw their vertical number line. And they would be able to say 500.
Okay.
What's one more than 500? 600.
Yeah.
That type of thing.
Okay.
So just kind of falling back on the stuff we've already done, as supports.
Use a place value
chart and use the vertical number line if they're necessary, which chances are they're going to be.
Okay. Well, at least you're noticing that now.
Yeah.
And you can have it at your disposal.
Yeah.
Any other? Or is that the main thing?
I foresee them possibly adding incorrectly with the algorithm. From time to time, and then being like, wait, it's not matching up with my rounding. What's wrong? And then using that more as proof, how did this help you?
Right. So hopefully that does happen. Because then you'll be like, well, your rounded thing is way different from that.
Exactly.
Or your estimate. Okay. So, in wrapping up this process.
Yeah.
And looking through our notes. What key takeaways can we pull out?
I think that the main key takeaway that we want them to be walking away with is that estimating numbers to the nearest 10 is always going to give you the most precise answer. And that sometimes the hundreds can also be helpful in making sure that your answer is reasonable.
Yeah.
But that rounding in any capacity is always going to help. Because ultimately, when you say the 10, it could be to the nearest 100. It just depends on the number, you know?
And then in terms of key takeaways for, this process of, looking through the plan and, digging deep into it, do you have a takeaway?
Yeah, I mean, this was super helpful in terms of, looking at how the problems connect to one another, and then me being able to be like, okay, what can I cut from the script? Right? Or what do I need them to get out of each problem?
Yeah.
Or what's the value of each problem?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because lots of times I'm we just have to get through all of these problems, and it's no, we don't, but I do need them to walk away with this.
Yeah. I think evaluate the value of each problem. I would caution though, going back to what you were saying, I think this is an example of what was the saying, Eric?
Yeah.
What you guys talked about, I would understand. This is the exact same thing as this.
Right.
So I get that.
Yeah.
I think there will be instances like I saw last week where jumping from one end and skipping something and going to here, you lose kids.
I agree.
I would put that as a takeaway. If something gets cut, make sure it doesn't interfere with student understanding.
Yeah. Or that it isn't connected across broadly or whatever.
Yeah. It doesn't interfere with like the scaffolding.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense. Cool.
Yeah.
So I'm either gonna pop in and observe or set up the video camera to see how this lesson goes tomorrow.
Yeah. We shall see. No, this is really helpful. I'm already
Okay,
like, ooh,
good.
I have a lot less work to do tonight.
Great. 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 All right. I'm gonna turn
Yes. Bad boy off. Okay.